On one winter morning, a truck driver pulled over on a lonely highway in eastern Russia. There was no traffic, no towns, no phone signal, just snow stretching to the horizon. Then his engine died. He turned the key again, nothing. Outside, the temperature was below 50 degrees C asterisk. At that temperature, surviving on foot isn't just difficult, it can be impossible. The nearest help was hundreds of kilometers away, and as the warmth inside the truck slowly disappeared, he realized something terrifying. The cold wasn't the only thing he should be afraid of. Because the road beneath his wheels carried one of the darkest histories on Earth. This wasn't just another highway, it was the road of bones A road built through one of the most unforgiving landscapes on the planet, by people who had no choice. Thousands of prisoners were sent here during Joseph Stalin's rule to build a road across the frozen wilderness. Many never made it home. Over the decades, stories spread that those who died were buried beneath the road itself, giving rise to its chilling nickname. Exactly how often that happened is still debated by historians. But one fact isn't this highway exists because countless people suffered to build it, and today, nearly a century later, people still drive it not because it's safe, not because it's fast, but because surviving one of the loneliest roads on Earth has become a challenge few are willing to take. So what makes this road so dangerous? Is it the freezing temperatures, the endless isolation, or the history that refuses to stay buried? The answer is all of them. The Road of Bones lies deep in Russia's far east, cutting across a region so vast that it makes entire countries seem small. The best-known section is the R504 Kolyma Highway connecting Yakutsk and Magadan through thousands of kilometers of forests, mountains, rivers, and permafrost. On a map, it looks like an ordinary road. From the ground, it feels like the edge of the world. Leave the last major town behind and the signs of civilization begin to disappear. Traffic becomes rare, fuel stations become scarce, phone signals fade away. The further you drive, the quieter everything gets until the only sound left is your own engine. And that's when your mind begins to play tricks on you. Every vibration feels wrong. Every warning light grabs your attention. You start wondering if that strange noise has always been there, or if your vehicle is about to fail. On most roads, a breakdown is frustrating. Here, it can become life-threatening. That's why experienced travelers don't prepare for this highway like a weekend road trip. They prepare for it like an expedition. Extra fuel, recovery gear, food, medical supplies, warm clothing, satellite communicators. Some even carry spare engine parts because they know one mechanical failure can leave them stranded for hours or even days. But even perfect preparation can't control the one thing that has defeated explorers, soldiers, and prisoners alike: nature. This region is home to some of the coldest permanently inhabited places on Earth. During winter, temperatures regularly fall below 40 degrees C asterisk. In some years, they drop below 50 degrees C asterisk. Cold like that changes everything. Car batteries lose power, diesel fuel thickens, metal becomes brittle, plastic cracks. Even breathing feels different as moisture freezes almost instantly in the air. Locals sometimes leave their vehicles running for hours because turning the engine off could mean it won't start again. It's a place where nature doesn't care how experienced you are. Everyone plays by the same rules, and the Road of Bones enforces them without mercy. But as brutal as the weather is, it still isn't the reason this road became famous. To understand that, we have to go back to the 1930s, to a dictator determined to reshape an empire, and to the prisoners who would pay the price. The story of the Road of Bones didn't begin with a road. It began with a man, Joseph Stalin. By the early 1930s, Stalin had transformed the Soviet Union into a country where fear became a weapon. Millions of people disappeared into prisons and forced labor camps. Some had committed crimes, many had not. A careless joke, a political disagreement, a false accusation. Sometimes that was enough to change the rest of your life. For thousands of prisoners, that life ended in a place called Kolyma, if Moscow was the heart of the Soviet Union. Kolyma was its frozen edge, rich in gold, poor in everything else. No cities, no roads, no infrastructure. Just mountains, forests, frozen rivers, and winters so brutal they seemed impossible to survive. The Soviet government wanted the gold buried beneath this wilderness. But first, someone had to build a road, not because they volunteered, because they were forced to. The journey to Kolyma was a nightmare before the work even began. Prisoners were packed into overcrowded trains for days or weeks. Many had no idea where they were going. From there, countless prisoners were transported by ship across the Sea of Okhotsk to the port of Magadan, the main gateway into the Kolyma labor camp system. For many, that was the last time they would ever see the outside world. One survivor later recalled that when the ships arrived, people weren't welcomed. They were counted, sorted, and marched into a world where human life had almost no value. Every prisoner quickly learned one brutal truth. The cold wasn't your enemy, time was. The longer you stayed, the smaller your chances of leaving alive. Every morning began the same way. Before sunrise, the prisoners were ordered outside. The air was so cold it burned their lungs. Then came the work. Trees had to be cut down, rock had to be blasted, frozen ground had to be broken apart with hand tools. The problem was, frozen ground doesn't behave like normal soil. It hardens almost like concrete. Some workers spent hours breaking through just a few centimeters, and when they finally did, they simply moved a few steps forward and started again, day after day. Week after week, winter after winter, food was scarce, the work never slowed. Those who met their daily quota received slightly more food, those who couldn't received less. It created a cruel cycle. The weaker a prisoner became, the less food he earned. The less food he earned, the weaker he became. For many, starvation arrived long before freedom ever could. One former prisoner wrote that the camps didn't always kill people suddenly. They killed them slowly, not with a single blow, but with exhaustion, hunger, cold, and hopelessness. Death became part of everyday life. Men collapsed where they stood. Some died from disease, others from frostbite, others simply because their bodies could no longer endure another day. Exactly how many people died in the Kolyma labor camp system is still debated by historians. Soviet records were incomplete and in some cases deliberately concealed. But historians agree on one thing: the human cost was enormous. It was measured not in hundreds, but in many thousands of lives. Over time, stories spread that prisoners who died during construction were buried beneath the road itself because the frozen ground was too hard to dig. It's one of the most famous stories surrounding the Road of Bones, but it's also one of the most misunderstood. Historical evidence suggests that many prisoners were buried in graves near camps and construction sites. In some locations, bodies may indeed have been left close to or beneath sections of the road because of the extreme conditions and the urgency of the work. But historians still debate how common that practice actually was. The legend grew because the suffering was real, whether beneath the road or beside it. The people who built this highway paid for it with their lives. That's why the name Road of Bones has endured, not because it's a ghost story, because it's a reminder. Today, much of the wilderness has swallowed those camps. Wooden barracks have collapsed. Watchtowers have rotted away. Trees now grow where prisoners once stood in line before dawn. If you drive past these places today, you might never know what happened there unless someone tells you, and that's why this story matters, because roads don't remember, people do. But even after the camps disappeared, the danger didn't. The Soviet Union is gone, the prisoners are gone, yet every winter, the Road of Bones still tests anyone who dares to cross it, only now. The enemy isn't a prison guard, it's the wilderness itself. The prisoners are gone, the labor camps are gone. So why do experienced drivers still describe the Road of Bones as one of the most intimidating highways on Earth? Because history isn't what puts your life in danger today. The wilderness does. The moment you leave the city behind, something changes. The traffic disappears, the houses disappear. Even the sound of civilization disappears. For hours, sometimes an entire day, the only thing ahead of you is a ribbon of road cutting through endless forests and frozen mountains. At first it's beautiful, then it becomes unsettling, then it becomes exhausting because every kilometer reminds you of one terrifying fact: if something goes wrong out here, you're largely on your own. Most people think the biggest danger is getting lost. It isn't. Modern GPS can usually tell you exactly where you are. The real question is, can anyone reach you? Large sections of the highway have little or no mobile phone coverage. If your vehicle breaks down, calling for help isn't as simple as pulling out your phone. That's why experienced travelers carry satellite communicators or emergency beacons. Without them, you may have no reliable way to contact anyone. And in this climate, time is something you don't have much of. Then there's the cold. Most of us have experienced freezing weather, but this isn't freezing weather. This is a level of cold that changes how machines behave. Engine oil thickens, rubber hardens, metal contracts. Batteries lose power much faster than most drivers expect. In some villages across Yakutia, people leave their vehicles running for long periods during winter because shutting the engine off can make restarting it extremely difficult. Imagine stopping to take a photograph. You switch off the engine, step outside for 10 minutes. When you climb back in, the engine refuses to start. At first, it's frustrating. Then you notice the temperature, -45. The heater no longer works. The warmth trapped inside the vehicle begins to disappear, and suddenly, you're no longer thinking about your journey. You're thinking about survival. One overland traveler later described a breakdown on the Road of Bones as the quietest moment of his life. No traffic, no voices, no aircraft overhead. Just absolute silence. He said that after a while, the silence became louder than any noise he'd ever heard. Every minute felt longer than the last. Every glance toward the empty road raised the same question: what if nobody comes? Eventually, another truck appeared, but he admitted something had changed forever. He realized that out there, confidence means nothing, preparation means everything. The road itself never lets you relax. One section may be smooth enough to drive comfortably. A few kilometers later, you're bouncing across broken gravel, deep potholes, or muddy tracks left behind by heavy trucks. In spring and summer, melting ice turns parts of the road into thick mud. Drivers have watched vehicles sink almost to their axles after choosing what looked like the safest path. Winter brings a different challenge: black ice, strong winds. Snow drifting across the road so quickly that yesterday's tracks disappear overnight. There are moments when the road seems to vanish completely into the landscape. You aren't following a highway anymore, you're following instinct. And then there are the rivers. For decades, rivers shaped life along this route. Before permanent bridges reached every crossing, seasonal ice roads became essential. When the ice was thick enough, heavy trucks crossed frozen rivers. But when temperatures changed, those same crossings could become extremely dangerous. Nature decides when they're safe, not the calendar. Out here, the weather isn't just part of the journey, it controls the journey. The wildlife reminds you of that too. Brown bears roam these forests. Moose can suddenly appear on the road. Wolves still inhabit the region. Most of these animals avoid people. But when you're stranded for hours or walking beside an empty highway, you quickly remember whose home this really is. You're the visitor, not them. But perhaps the greatest danger is something no one can see: your own mind. Hour after hour, the scenery barely changes. Snow, trees, mountains, silence. The human brain is built to respond to change. New sounds, new conversations, new landmarks. Out here, those things become incredibly rare. Many long-distance drivers describe a strange mental state that slowly creeps in. Time feels distorted. Distances seem endless. Your concentration begins to fade without you noticing. Psychologists call this highway hypnosis ***, a state where repetitive driving can reduce your awareness even though your eyes remain open. On a busy road, it's dangerous. On the Road of Bones, it can be deadly. That's why experienced drivers stop regularly even when they don't feel tired, because by the time your brain tells you it's exhausted, it may already be too late. And that's the cruel irony of the Road of Bones. It doesn't usually defeat people through one dramatic event. It does it slowly. A small mistake, a missed fuel stop, a mechanical problem. A moment of overconfidence, One poor decision becomes another, until there's no easy way back, which raises an important question. If everyone knows how dangerous this road is, why do people keep coming? The answer has very little to do with danger, and everything to do with what this road represents. So, why would anyone willingly drive one of the most isolated roads on Earth? Why leave behind warm hotels, busy cities, and reliable roads, just to spend days crossing a frozen wilderness where one mistake could cost you everything? For some, it's about adventure. For others, it's about history. But for many, it's about standing in a place that forces you to see the world differently, because the Road of Bones isn't just a destination, it's an experience. One that begins changing you long before the journey is over. Truck drivers know this road better than almost anyone, while most people see the Road of Bones as an extreme expedition. For them, it's part of everyday life. They drive it to deliver fuel, food, medicine, building materials. Without those deliveries, many remote communities would struggle to survive the long winter. Every trip carries risk, yet they keep coming back, not because the road has become safe, but because people are waiting at the other end. It's easy to call this road dangerous. It's much harder to remember that for thousands of people it's also essential. Travelers who complete the journey often describe something unexpected. They don't talk about fear first. They talk about silence, not the silence of an empty room, the silence of an entire landscape. A silence so complete that you begin hearing things you normally ignore. The crunch of snow beneath your boots, your own breathing, the wind moving through the trees, even the sound of your heartbeat inside a warm jacket. Modern life rarely gives us moments like that. And when it does, many people find them uncomfortable, because silence leaves you alone with your thoughts. Out here, there are no notifications, no traffic, no crowds, nothing to distract you. Just you and the road. Perhaps that's why the Road of Bones leaves such a powerful impression. It strips away the illusion that humans are always in control. We spend most of our lives believing there's a solution to every problem: a phone call, a repair shop, a nearby hospital, someone who can help. But there are still places on Earth where those assumptions disappear, places where nature doesn't negotiate. The Road of Bones is one of them. It doesn't care how expensive your vehicle is. It doesn't care how many times you've driven through snow before. It doesn't care how confident you feel. Out here, preparation beats confidence, patience beats speed, and respect beats arrogance. Every single time. Then there's the history. As your tires roll across the highway, it's impossible not to think about the people who built it. The prisoners who arrived in Kolyma believing they might one day return home. The families who never saw them again. The workers who spent years fighting cold, hunger, exhaustion, and despair. Some survived, many didn't. The road you see today is more than asphalt, gravel, and bridges. It's a reminder of the price human beings have paid throughout history in the name of power, ambition, and progress. That's why the Road of Bones matters, not because it's haunted. Not because of myths, but because the suffering behind its construction was real. History doesn't become less important simply because the buildings disappear. The forests may reclaim the camps. The snow may hide the scars, but memory survives through the stories we choose to tell. And maybe that's the real reason people come here, not to conquer the road, but to understand it. To stand in a place where beauty and tragedy exist side by side, where breathtaking mountains overlook one of history's darkest chapters. Where one journey can make you appreciate something as simple as a warm home, a working phone, or another human being nearby, because after spending days on the Road of Bones, those ordinary things don't feel ordinary anymore. So, would you drive it? Would you cross thousands of kilometers of frozen wilderness, knowing that a mechanical failure could leave you completely alone? Would you follow a highway built through unimaginable hardship, simply to witness one of the most remote places on Earth? Some people spend their entire lives avoiding places like this. Others travel across the world just to experience them once. Neither choice is wrong, but everyone who leaves the Road of Bones seems to agree on one thing: you don't simply drive this road. You carry it with you long after the journey ends, because some roads take you somewhere. The Road of Bones changes how you see the world. If you enjoyed this documentary, make sure to subscribe for more true stories about the world's most dangerous roads, forgotten places, and incredible events that shaped history. Because the next place we explore may be even more unbelievable than this one. Until then, stay curious and thanks for watching.